The wind hit the deck like a living thing. Snow and ice whipped across the black ocean as the SS Orpheus groaned against the crushing Arctic ice. Sailors rushed between frozen railings, while the ship's lanterns flickered weakly through the storm. Then someone screamed. Far ahead, through the thick fog, another ship appeared. Its outline looked identical to theirs. Same damaged mast. Same lantern hanging near the bow. Same faded lettering across the hull. Orpheus. For several seconds, nobody aboard spoke. The crew simply stared at the impossible vessel drifting silently through the darkness beside them. Captain Elias Winter stepped onto the deck slowly, his boots crunching against frozen ice. His face remained calm, but his eyes stayed fixed on the ghostly ship in the distance. "There are no other vessels within 500 miles, he said quietly. The strange ship vanished back into the fog almost immediately, swallowed by the storm as if it had never existed at all. But nobody on the deck slept after that night. Before we begin, thank you for spending a few minutes of your day here. Tonight's story isn't one you hear often, it's the kind that quietly disappears into history, even though it never should have been forgotten. If stories like this stay with you, feel free to subscribe and join us for the next one." The year was 1932. Arctic exploration had become a dangerous obsession for governments and explorers desperate to chart new sea routes through the frozen north. Entire crews vanished regularly beneath shifting ice fields, but the promise of discovery kept sending more ships into the darkness. The SS Orpheus had been sent to map an unstable route through the Greenland Sea near the Frem Strait. The mission was risky, but Captain Winter had accepted it without hesitation. Years earlier, he had led another expedition that ended in disaster. Most of his crew died trapped in pack ice, and ever since then, his name carried the weight of failure. This voyage was his chance to restore his reputation. The crew trusted him because he understood the Arctic better than almost anyone alive. But the Arctic never cared about experience. Only survival. Navigator Henrik Solberg hated the silence. Every night, he sat near the bridge watching the compass needle twitch unnaturally beneath the lantern light. Sometimes it rotated slowly without explanation. Sometimes it froze completely. "The ice is wrong here," Henrik whispered one evening. Dr. Arthur Bell looked up from his notes and sighed. "Ice cannot be wrong." Henrik shook his head nervously. "You don't understand. It moves differently. Almost like it's following us." Bell dismissed the idea immediately. He believed isolation and exhaustion were affecting the crew's minds. But even Bell could not explain why the ship's clocks began losing time. One morning, the entire crew realized nearly an hour had disappeared. No one remembered what happened during that missing stretch of time. The radio operator swore he had heard voices speaking through the static during the blackout. Voices whispering, "Turn back before the ice closes." The deeper the Orpheus traveled north, the stranger things became. At night, distant lights moved across the frozen horizon where no settlements existed. Crew members heard footsteps on the upper deck even when everyone was accounted for below. One sailor claimed he saw a man standing far away on the ice during a blizzard. The figure did not move. Did not wave. Did not disappear. He simply stood there watching the ship from impossible distance. Henrik became convinced something was following them. Captain Winter refused to retreat. "We finished the route," he told the crew firmly. "No matter what waits ahead. Days later, the ship encountered a massive field of drifting icebergs. Thick fog rolled across the sea, reducing visibility to almost nothing. That was when the crew discovered the frozen supply crate. It was trapped inside an iceberg near the ship. The wood was old and heavily damaged. But painted across the side were the words, SS Orpheus. The crew stared in disbelief. The crate looked decades old. But the Orpheus had never traveled through these waters before. Dr. Bell tried explaining it logically. Perhaps another vessel once carried the same name. Yet even he sounded uncertain now. The Arctic had begun stripping away everyone's confidence. That night, the radio crackled violently. A broken Morse code transmission echoed through the cabin. Lena Morrow copied the message carefully with trembling hands. When she finished reading it aloud, silence filled the room. Engine room floods at 3:11. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The message continued. Captain refuses evacuation. Then the transmission ended in static. Captain Vinter ordered everyone back to work, but fear had already spread across the ship. Nobody trusted the darkness outside anymore. Shortly after midnight, the fog parted again. And there it was. The second Orpheus. This time it floated much closer. Frozen between towering walls of ice. Dead silent. Its lantern still swayed gently in the wind. Captain Vinter gathered Henrik, Bell, and Lena before stepping onto the ice bridge connecting the two ships. The frozen surface cracked beneath their boots as they crossed slowly toward the abandoned vessel. Inside, the ship looked untouched. Hot coffee sat frozen inside cups. Blankets remained folded neatly across bunks. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Only silence. Then Henrik discovered the captain's logbook. Its pages shook in his hands as he read aloud. Every entry described events currently happening aboard their own ship. The missing hour. The strange radio signals. The figure on the ice. And then the final entry. At 3:11, the engine room floods. The ship breaks beneath the ice. Lena looked toward the wall clock nearby. 3:07. Panic spread instantly. The crew rushed back toward their ship across the cracking ice field. Behind them, the frozen Orpheus groaned loudly. Huge fractures spread across its hull. Then the ice split open. As the ship tilted sideways, shapes became visible beneath the frozen walls. Bodies. Crew members trapped inside the ice itself. Frozen faces stared outward from beneath layers of blue-white frost. And among them was Captain Elias Vinter. Lena froze in horror. "Captain," she whispered. "That's you." Vinter said nothing. For the first time during the expedition, fear appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, a violent explosion erupted aboard the real Orpheus. Steam burst into the sky. Alarm bells rang across the deck. Exactly as the logbook predicted. The ship lurched violently as freezing water flooded the lower compartments. Crewmen screamed while ice shattered around the hull. The Arctic swallowed sound itself beneath roaring wind and cracking steel. Lena remembered Captain Vinter standing motionless on the deck while chaos erupted around him. Almost as if he already knew how the story ended. Then the ice beneath the ship opened. And everything disappeared into darkness. Weeks later, Norwegian whalers discovered a lifeboat drifting alone through thick Arctic fog. Inside sat Lena Morrow. Barely alive. Half frozen. She was the only survivor ever found. When rescuers asked what happened to the Orpheus, she repeated the same sentence over and over again. "We found ourselves out there." Authorities blamed exhaustion and hallucinations caused by Arctic exposure. No wreckage was ever recovered. No bodies were ever found. But one final radio transmission remained stored in naval records. A weak voice buried beneath static whispered, "To anyone receiving this, do not follow the second ship." Then silence. Even now, some Arctic sailors refuse to travel near the Frem Strait during heavy fog. Because from time to time, another ship is reportedly seen drifting between the ice fields. Dark. Silent. Motionless. Its lantern swinging slowly in the wind. And across its frozen hull, barely visible beneath snow and ice, the name Orpheus.